These are known as quarter inch, sometimes known as 6.3 mm as well. And sometimes you'll see that. Okay, what would you all call this cable usually? If you see this like that. Headphone jack and all that. It kind of resembles that, right? Yeah, because when you look at your headphones and all that, usually you see the way it's constructed. You have two lines in here, right? Can you tell me what the two lines are indicative of?
Stereo.
Stereo, right? Why is that?
Because you're breaking up the connector into separate electrical connections.
Yes, okay. Yeah, thanks Ash. So actually, if you look at here, this is also known, people would call this, most lay people would call this a stereo cable, which is not wrong. But I mean, if you want a more technical term, it's known as a tip ring sleeve cable or a TRS cable. If you look at this, there's a tip, and then this middle part is a ring that goes around, and then there's the bottom, there's a sleeve. The other type of cable, which I actually, we only have like kind of one example here in the form of the adapter. This, what's this called? What is this one called? Here, we only have one line, right? What's this called? Mono is one way to call it, because that one was the stereo cable. The technical term for this is tip sleeve. There's no ring here, because there's no second one that separates the middle. So the middle point is what gives you that second channel, basically. I mean, alternative variants would also be like, I can show you all one. Yeah, this is just so you all know all the connectors and all that. One that you typically wouldn't use for professional audio, but you see this? What is this called? I know this is a smaller one, but it's still the same principle. There's three lines, right?
TRS.
TRRS, or tip ring sleeve. What's the third one? So basically there's three connectors here. What's the third one for?
Microphone.
Microphone, correct. Okay, so getting familiar with all of these connector types is important because your different audio devices use different connectors. Okay, typically instruments such as maybe your guitar and a synthesizer like the one I have over there, they would use quarter inch. So if you look at the back of here, I've done the thing, audio. If you look at the back of this synth here, this is an Arturia microframe. If you look at here, the connector is this, basically the big type. This basically the TS or TRS. Here I'm using a TRS, but you can use a TS cable as well. Sometimes, depending on how the synth is built, sometimes if you use a TRS cable, you actually can reduce noise if the output there is what people call balanced. Okay, that one I can explain a bit more later. It's a bit more complicated. Okay, on top of that, we also have microphones, right? So these are your other main thing for recording instruments, especially instruments without a direct line out or without a built-in pickup and all that with the output. Okay, so this is a microphone, and if you look at the bottom here, the connector is. Look at the bottom. What's the connector? It's XLR, correct? Okay. So microphones would generally require an XLR connection. Okay, so let's start with the microphones first, okay? Because I think it's a bit easier, and you all also brought your acoustic instruments that you can play with them. Okay, and also microphones, there's a little, it's not that it's hard to set up, it's just that there's precautions to take note of, especially if you are using certain types of microphones. Can anyone list me the types of microphones?
Dynamic condenser, ribbon, there's contact microphones.
TSO. Yeah, which I mean, yeah. So just generally, that's a good smattering of all the microphones types of microphones that we have. Typically, those with the XLR outputs, you would be the dynamic type and the condenser type, and sometimes the ribbon type. In EML, I don't think we have ribbon microphones, or if we have, it's probably broken. Yeah, I don't think we have that. Yeah. Okay. So dynamic microphones, right? You would most commonly find them on stages. So if you see, like, I don't know, last time school principal giving your speech and all that, and they're not using a wireless type, those wired mic, that's most likely a dynamic microphone. Because dynamic microphones, as the name suggests, allows you to kind of capture a wide dynamic range of audio. So you know those principals and school teachers, they don't know how to use microphone. Right? So sometimes they whisper into it, sometimes they shout into it, and they can't really get the good middle ground. So that type of microphone is really meant to capture the whole range of dynamic range, which is why it's always used on stage. Even singers do it on stage as well. So like, because sometimes singers, they need to belt very loud, and sometimes they need to sing softer, so you need something that can capture all of it. Okay, so the good point about dynamic mics is they can capture a wide range, and you can use them in a live scenario, because if you've seen those SM58 microphones, you can chuck them around, you can throw them, they're quite indestructible. Okay, I don't think we have an SM58 here. We don't, right? Yeah, we don't. So those are the dynamic microphones, okay? So typically for that type of microphone, if we were to just want to get it to work, right? all we need to do is plug the XLR cable into the interface or into whatever receptacle is doing. It is receiving the audio, and we will be able to hear it as long as you turn up the volume and set the gain properly. Okay, but for condenser microphones, there's a special additional step that needs to be taken. Can anyone tell me what it is?
Phantom power.
Yeah, okay, phantom power. Alright, so can anyone tell me what is phantom power? Huh?
Powering it from the audio.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that's because condenser microphones need to be powered before they can receive audio from outside world. Okay, it needs to be electrified first. Okay, yeah. So how do we do that, and how do we do that safely, right? Okay, so can I have one volunteer? Yeah, thanks. Okay, thank you. Okay, so just slowly connect the both sides on this side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, especially for XLRs, you will have that little catch there. You should be able to, I don't know who called it XLR, right? Yeah, you should be able to hear a click when it's plugged in properly, because there's a little catch there to lock it in. Okay? So for this side, you will then plug it into one of the inputs here, right? So one of the combo jacks here, I think let's just use input 1 for today. Okay, yeah. Okay, hold on. Let's explain the phantom power switch, but thank you. Yeah, that we need to make sure. So what I need to do is I need to go to my settings. So I need to click on Ableton. You need to click on the CPU meter at the top right hand. Click on configure audio. Okay, this will look a little bit different on Windows, but on Mac, right? Basically, the driver type, select core audio. That's your default Mac driver. Most of the time, especially for these cheaper interfaces, you just use the default Apple drivers. That will do, because Apple drivers are quite good, well optimized anyway. Whereas if you get more expensive interfaces, it might be another option. But right now, you just need core audio, right? I'll briefly explain Windows as well later on. Okay. Yeah. So for your audio input device, just set it. You click it, and you have a list of options depending on what you have installed. You'll see your MacBook Pro microphone, your these are my other things. So if you have Microsoft Teams or Zoom, you get all the other audio sources as well. Pick the one that is the name of your interface. So this is the Onyx Producer 2-2. So I pick this as my input device. Output device, set it to the same thing as well, because in this case I'm playing audio out through here as well. So both basically set this to the Onyx Producer. On Windows, the options look a little bit different, because generally on Windows you have to install a driver first. Whereas on Mac, you don't need to install drivers. So on Windows, once you've installed the specific driver for the interface that you bought from, I don't know, City Music Studio or Carousel or something, you will be able to pick the driver of your audio interface from this screen here. Okay? Or rather, you will be able to pick the device directly from here. If not, you would have to go through the ASIO, like if you've got to install the ASIO drivers, you'll change the driver type to ASIO, and then under your ASIO settings in the bottom right-hand corner of your Windows taskbar, you can just set the output to your audio interface. Okay? Later, if you want to try that out and you all need help, you can just approach us, or actually maybe approach Ben better because it's Windows user, right? Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, so now that we have this set up, it's actually more or less okay already. Just one thing to check, that's an annoying thing that Ableton sometimes does, is it sometimes disables the inputs when you are first using a new interface. In this case, this interface only has 2 inputs, so by default it's already enabled. But sometimes if you use a slightly more higher end interface, this one only has 2, right? If you get one with 4 or 6, sometimes Ableton Live disables the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8. Don't ask me why, it just does that, then you have to re-enable. But just make sure these are orange, so that it's receiving, okay? So Ableton can either receive 1 and 2 as mono inputs, that means singular inputs, or it can pair both inputs as a pair, and you get it in left and right, stereo. Okay, today I think we're probably just doing a mono thing. Okay, so back to the condenser microphone. Just now we were talking about how condenser microphones need to be powered, right? Because you're suddenly introducing more power. So what you need to do, usually turn down the main speakers, then you should be safe. Okay? So once you turn this down, even if there's a pop, you won't hear it, and you won't damage your speakers, and you won't damage your hearing. Okay? So in this case, the speakers are pretty low power and all that, so it doesn't really matter. Or rather, it matters, but it won't kill your ears, but just take the precaution anyway. Okay, now that we have this down, what we need to do is enable the 48 volts. So it's this button down here. On the case of the Mackie, it's down here, okay? It's not these two, there's two other buttons here which I'll explain later. They are not related to phantom power. It's this button, okay? And in the case of these types of audio interfaces, because they're cheaper, when you press plus 48 volts on one, it will actually distribute the phantom power to both channels. So if you have, so you have to make sure you don't have something that might be damaged by the phantom power on the other one. So because it both receive it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, just press it, it'll turn green. Okay, did you all see a pop there? Okay, you all saw a green spike there, right? What you just need to do is press this and make sure the bottom part is armed. So you see this? Make sure this is on, okay? Record arm, okay? Make sure the red light is on. I'm gonna click it. Interface here. Right now I have it set all the way down to about like 7 o'clock, which is basically, you're only getting the base level of recording. It's not having, there's no further gain boosting. So what we can do is to turn it up until it's a healthy level. So Max, what I need to do is to keep playing the kalimba, and then the rest of I want you to watch the level, okay? I want you to watch this level, and then I'm going to slowly turn up the gain until and then you will see that the level coming in increases. And I want you all to stop me once the level kind of aggregates at a healthy level. So what do I mean by healthy? Around maybe negative 24, negative 18, in between here, okay? Once it gets into that range and kind of hovers around that range, stop me, okay? Okay, so Max, keep playing. Right? You can just keep playing, you won't be able to hear it through. So I'm just slowly turning it up, if you notice. Okay, do you all hear that? Feedback, right? Yeah. Feedback is basically that horrible eeing sound that you hear in the school hall when your teacher kind of doesn't know what they're doing and points the microphone at the speaker. What happens is you get an infinite loop because the hum of the speaker or whatever ambient noise comes out of the speaker, goes into the microphone, comes out of the speaker again, goes to the microphone. It's just an endless loop, and this causes and all that. So actually just now that low hum that you're hearing is actually the microphone picking up the Max playing the kalimba, that signal coming out of the speaker, going back into the microphone, and then in an endless loop. That's why we kind of have to regulate it, and that's why we have to turn off. That's why I turn down the volume here, okay? But sometimes it's not ideal to turn down your main volume here, right? So now you can hear a little bit. So what I need to do is to click monitor off here. So at the bottom of each channel, you have monitor in, auto, and off, okay? So to explain the differences, when it's off, you won't hear the signal of whatever is coming through, the input, in this case is the microphone. You won't hear it coming out through the speaker, so it just shuts it off. For auto, you will hear it, but only if the record arm button at the bottom is armed. If it's on some other track and you select some other track and it's not activated, you won't hear it. Then for in, that means it will always play back what you're playing through the microphone or whatever input instrument you're using. Okay? In this case, because we don't want to get feedback in the room, we are turning off the monitoring. Okay? So Max, you can continue to play the kalimba. I think it's almost okay already. Oh, okay. What happened? Oh, okay. Another thing, audio interfaces have their own built-in monitoring as well. So what we need to do to avoid that is this knob here. Okay, this is quite important.
Everybody
so
come closer.
You all want to come and see? Especially the new folks. Not all interfaces have this. Some don't have it, some have it through software. But if you see this knob here, it's actually a knob that centers in the middle. There's a little dent at the middle. Then you can turn it all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Okay? So in the middle, what happens is that it plays back a mix of your computer's audio, which means whatever's coming out of Ableton Live or whatever you put on your DAW, and then it plays that back. On the other side, so that's basically if you look here, the text here, it says DAW, which means your computer or your audio software. Okay? At the left side, it's input. That means it will directly play back whatever you feed into it. So if you feed here, it immediately spits it back out. Okay? But in this case, we don't want that because we don't want to cause feedback. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this knob to the right, okay, to DAW. So that way it only listens to the computer's audio. And since the computer, we disabled the monitoring there already, then it doesn't matter. Okay, so we shouldn't get the feedback anymore. Okay, so yeah, sorry Max, a little bit more. I think we more or less got the level already, but just wait. Try to hold a bit closer to the top. Okay, so it's about 24. I think, speaking about 24, I think that's okay already. Okay, for kalimbas especially, since they are kind of smaller instruments, they are not amplified at all. This can be okay. When I look at it, this is a much healthier waveform to work with. So that's the recording. Okay. Alright, so actually once I have this, then I can process this audio in any way I like. I can cut it, I can clip it, I can boost its gain again. So go to gain here. So now I can make it a bit louder. So now I get more pronounced spikes. Because my starting volume is already more substantially loud than it was without any gain amplification. So what I get is a much healthier signal here. Okay? So we can hear it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's it. That's recording. Okay. Of course, you can also process of turning off your phantom power. Like let's say you don't need to record with your condenser mic already. Don't plug out the condenser mic immediately if your phantom is on. That's your kind of one-stop shop to spoiling your microphone. Okay, what you need to do, firstly, protect your ears, protect your speaker system. Turn down your volume. Okay, 0. Then, once it's down, turn it off like that. Disable it. You might see a pop there, and you see that there's still a bit of signal there, but you'll see the signal slowly dies out as the electricity stops flowing there. It just stops working. Okay, so now, mic doesn't work anymore. Okay, so now it's safe to pull it up. Okay, so like we said, this is a combo jack, so it takes both kind of quarter-inch and condenser inputs. But generally, the rule of nowadays, modern tech and modern instruments have built-in measures to protect against like power surges and all that. So, and even in the design of this, generally when you plug in a quarter-inch, it shouldn't damage your other instruments. But just for the purpose of safety, what I usually do is to turn off the phantom power if I'm not using. Okay, so now we can plug in the guitar. Do we have the cable? Do you have the? Okay, we can try that. I think should work. Yeah. Okay, generally guitar. There's additional things we need to take note of when we are recording from a guitar. Because a guitar is what we would call a passive instrument. Okay, so a guitar is an electric instrument, but it's passive. So those of you who play electric and all that, you don't ever put a battery into your guitar, right? It doesn't need power, okay? Or it doesn't need to be powered in a sense. It's still electrical, it still outputs a signal, but that signal level, because it's not being powered and all that, it's because it's a passive instrument, it's a very low signal, okay? So HI-Z. What does that mean? What does Z stand for? This is more generally, the way you describe it is like the instrument, it's kind of the signal to noise ratio or something like that. It's not as dangerous to turn it on like that, but I mean generally if you want to be safe, keep the volume down. Okay, so you need to turn it on, then let's go up. Okay, so this primes your signal to kind of receive, it primes your interface to receive the passive signals a little bit better, then you don't get a muffled kind of unclear sound. Sometimes generally you plug a passive instrument into your interface and you record. You still can receive a signal, it's just sometimes it won't have the highest kind of clarity and all that. So this helps to alleviate that. Okay? Let's put on the amp, okay? So let's do it. So like we have virtual amp sync. amps if you don't have like pedals or anything. So this a synthesizer is a powered instrument. It's powered in this case over the USB. I could power it via the wall as well. And of course the connector is the same. It's also the kind of your 1/4 inch here. It just goes through the back here into the input here. Okay, so now I have it on an initialized preset. I can't hear anything, but what I need to do is to hit the monitoring on the computer. You don't need high Z for this. Okay, yeah, so that's the main point here. Because a synthesizer is powered, there's power being supplied to it, you don't need high Z. Okay, because the signal coming out, it's called a line level signal, which is several factors stronger than your instrument level or passive level signal. Okay, yeah. Could someone help me hit the auto button on the last channel? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so